Good morning. I would like to call the meeting of the Diversity Committee to order, please. My name is Rhonda Herman. I chair the Diversity Committee, and at this time, I would like to welcome, well, my vice chair isn't here, but I would welcome Linda Lacewell and Robert Lynn to the committee. And we will now have the safety briefing.
Your safety is of foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen to the following instructions. In the event of an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and 911 should be called. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell D down the hallway past the elevators. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. Thank you and have a safe day.
Thank you. And Michael, are there any public speakers today?
Yes, there's three. Maria?
Good morning, everyone. Our first speaker today is Jason Pinero.
Good morning, Rhonda. Nice to see you in this beautiful Wednesday morning. I don't tend to speak on diversity, but as a person that is Puerto Rican, it's very important that the MTA has diversity. Because every year in the Puerto Rican Day Parade, we see members of the Union TWU Local 100 March in the parade, but we don't see MTA staff marching in that event that occurs every first, I think, second Sunday of June. That coincides with my birthday. And I want to see, after Veronica Vanderpool's departure from the board, I want to see more women, more young people involved, because seeing like old people and old male is like all same of the norm, and we want to break the norm and be more diverse, like Esmeralda Santiago said once in the melting pot. New York is the melting pot. And that's why the MTA has to be more diverse in that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Alana Smith. Alana? Okay, so next speaker will be Alberto Alamo. Alberto?
Okay, thank you. We're now going to have the approval of the June 24th, 2019 and the September 23rd, 2019 Diversity Committee meeting minutes. May I have a motion to? Oh, we don't, oh, yeah, we don't.
No.
We don't have a quorum, so we're going to defer approval of the minutes. Chair, are the, any updates, Michael, on the 2019 work plan?
There are no updates on the plan. None.
Are there any comments from any of the committee members? Thank you. Can you take us through the executive summary, Michael?
Yes, so the 2020 work plan is included in the materials for your review. Let me just state, as Chairman Foy would like to indicate, what are the big headlines for this meeting. Big headlines is this. Last year, the MTA paid $736 million to minority women-owned firms, which equated to 26%. That was for the whole entire year. We're ranked number one in the state, as you know, out of 96 state agencies and authorities by far. The first 2 quarters of this year, the MTA has been responsible for $477 million being paid to minority and women-owned businesses. That's in 6 months. So we are off to a great start. Second, we had a DBE Opportunity Day, our 5th annual one, where we bring all of our DBEs in and a number of our contractors. In addition, that Opportunity Day is co-sponsored by the FTA. So we had 166 firms in this room last week, and the FTA indicated that the national average of DBE is 17%. Our DBE goal is 18%. The first 6 months of last year, we achieved 28%. The second 6 months, we achieved 26%. And so we are currently at 26% from last year, the highest in the nation. And so I just want to recognize the staff and the support of this board, the chairman, and last but not least, the governor of the state of New York. So we're going to talk about our MW DBE initiatives. Zenaida.
Good morning. During the third quarter of the calendar year, DDCR and agency-wide staff participated in several outreach events to include internal events, the MWBE Legal Services Networking Forum, and the DBE certification workshops. MTA also partnered with sister agencies and advocacy organizations on several external events, one of the largest being the 25th anniversary of the Competitive Edge Conference, along with the annual Harlem Week event at Columbia University, which is the New York City Economic Development Day, where amongst business leaders and political leaders, our New York City Transit President Andy Byford was also a guest speaker. We've also participated in October at the 2019 New York State MWBE Forum held in Albany. And at this time, I just want to thank all of the agency-wide procurement staff for their ongoing commitment in participating in all our events. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Danny Camacho will give us an update on our DBE certification efforts and results.
Good morning. During the period of July through October of 2019, we certified 42 firms, which is quite a larger number than the same period last year. So basically, we're on an upward trend. A lot of that is attributable to Zenaida's group for doing the outreach to attract potential DBEs. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. George is going to give us a update on the MTA Small Business Mentoring Program. Let me just note that our program expires in 2 weeks as of 12/31. The governor extended this program for the next 10 years. He signed the bill back in June, and we are happy to announce that the MTA Small Business Mentoring Program will be around for the next 10 years. George.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning. Full page of the report is on page 80. With regards to our program, and since the inception, we had awarded 396 contracts totaling a little over $400 million. In our current year, we have had 28 contracts awarded totaling a little under $41 million. Our goal for this year is $80 million, and as of last month, we're about 15% away from that goal. With regards to our loan program, since the inception of the program, we have approved 120 loans totaling a little under $17 million. In our Surety Bonds Assistance Program, we have yielded $344 million in surety bond to our contractors. As Mike indicated earlier, legislation is in place to move forward for another 10 years. And as far as our program, we're trending upwards, and we're achieving our goal, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, George. And it was my mistake, but I passed by David Singh's EEO presentation, so we're going to rewind and retract. David.
Thanks. Good morning. As of September 2019, the MTA's workforce consisted of 74,018 employees, 18% of which are women, 70% of which are minorities, 3% are veterans, and 0.3 are persons self-identified as persons with disabilities. Women and minorities were hired at a higher rate than their representation in the workforce. The details regarding that new hires is on page 72 and 73. Utilization of female and minorities remain constant as compared to the same period in 2018, and details regarding utilization is on pages 63 through 70. At this point, what we'd like to do as part of our presentation is introduce a video by Michael Collins, which will discuss his diversity and inclusion efforts, including the transportation employee groups.
My name is Michael Collins, and I am the Assistant Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion for the Transportation Agency. I came here to establish a comprehensive approach to diversity and inclusion, one that focused more on inclusion over compliance. And part of that was to establish a strategy for diversity and inclusion. The strategy steps are to raise awareness first of what diversity and inclusion is, and that it includes all human differences that make people unique. Second is to change behavior to help people understand what inclusive behaviors look like so that people can feel appreciated and do their best work and give their whole selves to this organization and to the work that they do. And third, to integrate diversity and inclusion into how we do business, how we operate. And we like to use the term getting diversity into our DNA. A few of the elements of that strategy is communications. So we've been doing lots of communications around diversity, around inclusion. We just finished a lunch and learn, our first lunch and learn, where we talked about intersectionality. And so it's important for people to understand that diversity and inclusion means them. It means all of us. The second element of it is education and training. And so we've got inclusive behavior training that we've established with supervisors, with managers, and across the system. The third part is to establish transit employee groups, and that's something we're very proud of. We've just established 9 employee resource groups. Each one of them has an executive sponsor, and they are employee-led organizations that raise awareness about their particular affinity and also look for ways to help us to do better in terms of delivering service to those affinities. A part of that employee group program is what we call a diversity advisory council, and each employee group has an executive sponsor, and those are people who report directly to the president. Andy Byford, and Andy is the chairman of the Diversity Advisory Council. Something we're very proud of, we're very excited about it. We encourage you to get involved.
At this time, Mike will entertain any questions if there are.
Yes, Commissioner Lacewell.
Thank you, Chair. First, I would like to commend, as others have done, the staff for the extraordinary work on the MWBE efforts, which are vitally important to share financial inclusion with all of our communities. The MTA has really outperformed, as was indicated, and I'm proud to be a part of this enterprise. You know, I've only been here for, 6 months or something like that, but I'm proud to be a part of it now. I've previously expressed, and I am sure the full board and this committee share the concern about the very low level of female participation in our workforce. 18% is not anything to be proud of, and I would strongly suggest that 2020 ought to be, for us, the year of the woman in getting more women into the workforce. And I think it's probably going to take a concerted strategy. What are the obstacles for women joining the workforce? Obviously, childcare is always cited as #1 reason, and I don't know if there's something that the MTA can do in that regard. But women should be participating equally in our workforce, and I think, although it's good that we're hiring at a greater rate than the existing participation, I just think we need a dramatic plan, a very thoughtful plan with the input of all of you, obviously, and any other experts that you know, to figure out how can we change the paradigm. And the good news is there's a lot of room to go up. And so, again, I don't want this to diminish in any way the pride that I feel in the extraordinary work, because it's very important to have equal participation in the contracting work, and I know that it can be very difficult to do, and that had to take an extraordinary, if not heroic, effort. So kudos to everyone, and I look forward to supporting the efforts in 2020 on the employee side as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lacewell. And I agree with what Commissioner Lacewell just said, and would like at the next board meeting for you guys to come back to us with some information, data on what you've done, what the different. I know probably some of it has to do with the type of positions that are available and that we're hiring for in MTA, but I do agree that we should be able to do better than 18%, although we are doing and we're trending in a positive way, but we should be able to do better. So just come back to us with some of your ideas. You guys are really bright, smart, and I've seen that you do great work, and you all have great ideas, and you can help us, and we can help you to try to get this agency moving forward in hiring more women. Yes, Commissioner Lynn.
Let me just add, I also have been here about 6 months. I have sought to attend virtually every committee meeting possible, each of the 2 days, the committees and then the board meeting day. I think we should invite and try and expand it to more board members. I find that the process is incredibly useful in how much you learn. I think this is also a group that is, we should expand who hears, who participates, and the involvement of other board members. So I will do everything I can to speak to board members to try and enhance participation. I think it would be a good idea going forward. Whether the timing is 9 a.m. is too early for many board members to start, but we should see about the placement timing and to see if we can expand participation. Because I think I want to also applaud the extraordinary work of the group.
Thank you. And actually, 9 a.m. is, I've only been here 6 months, so we're just a great 6-month group of committee members here. But that's good. New blood is always good. But we usually are at 3:30 on the Monday. So I think maybe 9 was probably a little better, but you're right. We probably could see. But we are going to do a presentation in January to the full board so that we can get this committee and the members of Michael's staff some daylight, let people see and hear what they're doing, because I agree with you. It's very important, and they do great work, and the full board should be aware of it.
I would, if you don't mind, good morning. I'd like to share a couple of things. One is that one of our 9 employee resource groups is empowering women in transit. And so that is a lever that we can use to help improve the representation of women in the workforce. And in fact, they've had a couple of different panel discussions. One is to encourage women to improve their resumes, so they've had resume writing. They've also had a panel discussion that talked about women in leadership, and one of those panel members was Veronica Vanderpool. And it was held at the Transit Museum, and there were over 100 participants there. And so there is energy to support improving the numbers for women in this organization. But again, we have 9 employee groups. We have the Abilities Group, which is for people with disabilities, and all generational group. We have the Black group. We have Latinos and Friends, and Mr. Panera was mentioning, Puerto Ricans and so forth. And so we have a group for that, and Multicultural Pride Express, and we also have Transportation and Veterans. And there have been a lot of activities that they have conducted throughout this first year, and we're about to celebrate 1 year with these groups being in place in January next month.
but it is more than celebrations. We are about helping with recruitment, helping with general communication, helping with marketing to our customers, the customers that represent those affinities, and we're about, moving the business of transportation forward. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Another point I'll make is that while we initiated these groups in transit, they are initiated and led by transit people, New York City Transit. They are open to all MTA employees, and that is something that we've shared with all of them. Our approach is more focused on inclusion, but that does not diminish the importance of compliance. Compliance is something that we have to do by law, and we will continue to do those sorts of things. So those were a couple of points that I just wanted to mention in addition to the video that we just saw about the efforts that we have going on.
Thank you. And I was going to ask the question this was transit-based, what was going on in the other agencies. Did any of them take them up on their offer, or do they feel they need to have their own groups, or what is the plan for the other agencies?
Well, there's a little bit of both going on. Some of the agencies have started to introduce employee groups at their agencies. And again, it's only been a year, and so we're about to celebrate 1 year, and we can talk more about what that means across all of the agencies.
Thank you.
Let me echo what Mike is saying, and we're in total agreement. And what has often been said, that the same manner in which we turn the business side around by focusing on best practices, innovation, and resources, it's the same focus it's going to take in order for the MTA to hire in an inclusive, diverse manner. I often say that we live in the most diverse city in the world, and for us not to have the ability to hire in an inclusive and diverse manner is something that everybody sitting around these tables needs to focus on. And so we need to come up with strategies. And as a matter of fact, David Sang led an effort to gather all of the operating agencies together and come up with the 10 best practices with respect to how we can recruit and hire and retain in the most effective manner. We can circle back around on that, but I think at the end of the day, as transit has taken the lead, the whole entire organization must take the lead in order to hire in a more inclusive and diverse manner. So we hear you. Next, I'm sorry, Dr. Green?
If I can add one thing, this is a perfect opportunity for us to be able to get a special presentation for the next board member meeting to focus on strategies for looking at where women are placed within the agency and at all levels of the agency. One of the strengths behind our Equal Opportunity Program is our data and the accuracy of identifying availability and then monitoring internally to determine if we're underutilized in different areas. So we want to be fully inclusive and fully diverse in every area and every layer within MTA. With that being said, the U.S. Department of Labor standard occupational classification system is what we use to make sure that we have the most accurate data to identify who's available in what job categories and what job titles that we can intentionally reach out and pull into the agency. At latter part of 2018, those U.S. Department of Labor occupational codes were updated and modified. So now we're going to have to go through our job titles and update our occupational codes to align with those modifications, and then we'll use that with the census data to identify availability so that we can set sound and feasible goals for every job within the MTA. As we go about this, then we can spend some time crafting a customized plan and strategy for looking at placement and recruitment and retention of women in the agency. In the next couple of board meetings, we will communicate that plan and then talk about the implementation.
Thank you. Ms. Sorry, thank you, Ms. Green. That's exactly what we are looking for.
Next item is the interagency task force. This interagency task force was created to talk about MW and DBE issues at each one of the operating agencies with respect to the chief engineers and the procurement officers. So those meetings will take place every 6 months. Just recent, last week, I had a meeting with Jano, and if you Jano Lieber, and if you understand the challenge that we have with the new 5-year capital plan, the $54 billion capital plan, if you put 30% on that, that's $15.6 billion. Divide that by 5, that's $3.2 billion in opportunities for New York State certified MWBE firms. And our challenge now is going to be to go out into the marketplace, bring more firms in, certify them, and integrate them into our process. And so we talked about last week about having an advertising campaign. If you recall, about a year ago, we had car cards on the subways that talked about the success stories of firms who are doing work and winning contracts here. And so Jano and I agreed that that's going to happen again. But in addition to that, it's going to be digital as well. And so that's going to be our challenge. I want to circle around now to Ray Burke, who is going to give us an update on our MW, SDOV, and contract compliance highlights.
Good morning and happy holidays. I'll be presenting the highlights of the contract compliance area for MWDBE and SDVOB. The MTA's goal for MWBE is 30%. We are currently attaining 26%. The SDVOB goal, is 6%, and participation is 4%. DBE goal is 18%, and we are achieving 26%. In the area of contracts, we have approximately 1,151 active contracts that we're monitoring. In the area of site visits, we are currently averaging 57 monthly site visits, exceeding our 50 per month goal. Closed contracts, we are averaging 9 monthly closed contracts. Our overall status is that the MWBE and SDVOB goals are not being met. The trends are upward for SDVOB and WBE and constant for MBE participation. These low attainments that's preventing us from meeting the goal is due to historical contracts awarded with 10% WBE goals and lack of certified WBE firms and projects with specialized requirements resulting in reduced or waived goals. In the area of SDVOB, the low SDVOB certified firms in the program and the less than 100 SDVOB firms that are certified in our regions is also a challenge. As indicated, we have a strategy for improvement that includes, like Michael said, expanding our outreach efforts, which includes recruiting various women and veteran and minority trade groups. We also will be continuing to do outreach events. And obviously, one of our goals, which we've mentioned previously, is to shorten the contracts in the areas of $3 million to $15 million to provide additional opportunities for these firms. And recent legislation that raised our discretionary to $1 million is also helpful. And also, we need to hire additional MWDBE and SDVOB contract compliance staff. As far as capital projects are concerned, our attainment is 20% as far as DBE contracts are concerned. MBE, our attainment is 9%. WBE, our attainment is 9%. And SDVOB, our attainment is less than 1%. The status, as mentioned earlier, Both goals are not being met. Our MBE participation is constant, and the WBE participation is downward. Both of those are attributed to the reasons that I mentioned earlier. And that will conclude my presentation.
Commissioner Lacewell.
Thank you. Just a brief comment. To the extent you're trying to increase participation, I agree with you that having more firms certified could make a huge difference. I know that in the governor's push to reach increasingly higher MWBE-related goals, and for other groups, that after reaching a certain goal, a huge sustained push to get a lot of other firms certified then had the result of increasing participation. It was pretty dramatic. So I wholly concur in that regard.
Thank you.
Let me just add a quick brief commentary to that. Last year, the governor announced his MWBE results. 97 state agencies paid approximately $2.9 billion in contracts to minority women-owned firms, $2.9 billion. As I indicated earlier, the MTA equated for $735 million, so 25% of all dollars paid came from this organization. We've been at 26% for the past 2 or 3 years. If the MTA improves, the governor reaches his 30%. So we're hell-bent this year on making sure that we move the needle from 26%. Therefore, Ray has given me all of our projects that are not reaching their goals. We're forwarding those to the MTA operating presidents to call meetings and to bring these firms in to get an action plan for us to finally move off the needle of 26%. And so in the next 6 months, we're going to be doing everything that we can in order to achieve the governor's 30% goal. So stay tuned. Next, we are going to have a brief conversation on legal fees. Legal fees. So about three years ago, former MTA Vice Chairman Freddie Ferrer asked me to take a look at this. And at that given point in time, 4% of fees were being allocated to New York State certified MWBE law firms. That was 4%. We started working with all of the agencies, and that number increased in 2018 to 8%. We're currently at 18% during the first 6 months of this fiscal year. So we are monitoring this every month to make sure that the 36 MWBE law firms who we brought in and signed contracts with are getting assignments. And so to be able, in a 2-year period, to increase from 4% to 18%, we are very optimistic that if not this year, next year, the 30% in legal fees will match the governor's 30% mandate and 30% goal. So we're working and striving towards that. Pat is going to give us a update on our investment banking results.
Good morning. We are glad to present that despite the limited number of negotiated bond transactions for this state fiscal year, MTA Finance has or continues to exceed the state's goal by paying 58% of all underwriting fees to New York State certified MWB and SDVOB underwriting firms. And that concludes my report.
Great, and once again, I just want to thank the leadership of Bob Ferran and Pat McCoy and Pat for making sure that this is important as we issue debt that our MWBE investment bankers are getting their fair share or exceeding the fair share of fees that we are in fact paying. Next item is going to be to talk about our asset fund managers. We are currently have $1.3 billion of assets being managed by MWBE asset management firms. At our next meeting, our new CIO will be here to give a presentation on what she's doing in order to increase that. And I believe that this concludes our monthly meeting. I mean, our meeting. And I just want to just say that I have some of the hardest working staff of anywhere. I was here last night till about 8 o'clock, 8:30, and I still have staff here. And I told them to go home and get a life. And so, but I just want to just thank my staff for creating the most effective and innovative MWBE program in the nation. Secondly, that we are going to work in tandem with the operating agencies to make sure that our hiring practices are inclusive. So, and just so once again, a happy holidays to each and every one of you.
Happy holidays to everyone, and thank you all for all of your hard work, and we look forward to 2020 being a continuation of the same. And I would like to motion to adjourn. Second. The meeting is adjourned.